You're lying on the couch, staring into the dark ceiling, counting your heartbeats and waiting for one single sound. Footsteps. Not the shouts of barbarians at the walls, not the crackle of burning roofs. You're the Emperor, all that is far away. You're waiting for the whisper of sandals on marble in the corridor. That same dull rustle you yourself have heard dozens of times in other men's rooms, a minute before the Praetorians burst in and ended someone's career and life. Tonight those steps have come too close. First, a faint clink of iron on iron somewhere behind the door. Then, a muffled whisper. Then, that very rhythm. Several men moving in sync. The guards. One order is all they need, and they'll kill anyone in this palace. Yesterday you were master of the world. Today you feel like just another victim they've come to deliver a sentence to. Not in words, but with a blade under your ribs. You remember the faces of those who lay on this bed before you. Caligula, who laughed at the senators and died under the swords of his own guards in a theater corridor. Domitian, who forced everyone to call him Lord and God and took a knife in the heart from his courtiers. Commodus, who thought he was Hercules and choked to death in the hands of his own wrestler. Caracalla, stabbed by his bodyguard when he went just to relieve himself by the roadside. You grasp one simple thing. Rome has millions of people, and one job that almost guaranteed ends with this. One night, you hear the guards' footsteps, and you won't know whether they've come to protect you or remove you. And that's the main question of this video. Is the life of a Roman emperor the peak of human destiny, or the worst sentence antiquity could invent? We'll break down why being ruler of the world meant living in constant fear, how plots, informers, and friends turned the palace into a cage, what punishments emperors used to hold on to power, and how those same mechanisms eventually turned on them. And we'll start with the most unpleasant point. The moment you first landed on this throne, and already understood you would not climb down from it alive. You're sitting on a marble chair on the Capitoline, the Senate before you. They rise and almost in unison murmur, Ave Imperator. Someone says pretty words about savior of the fatherland. Someone pretends to cry from joy. Someone lowers his eyes because just yesterday he voted for someone else. And you sit there thinking only one thing. How many of you are dreaming I wasn't here at all? And how many will go tonight to write letters to the Praetorians or my enemies? Roman propaganda sells a picture. The emperor is the pinnacle of success. Gold, marble, feasts, slaves, triumphs. History whispers something else. Out of roughly 70-something Roman emperors, in the broad sense, a significant share did not die a natural death. Some got the knife, some the poison. Some were forced to open their veins. Some were simply smothered with a pillow. Being emperor is like taking a throne in the center of an arena where everyone around is armed. They seem to be protecting you, but any one of your protectors can become an executioner at any moment. To understand why this position was not a reward but a heavy curse, let's see how a man even became master of the world. Almost no emperor comes to power peacefully. You don't walk into the empire's HR office and submit a resume. You come to power through civil war, conspiracy, or at least a palace scheme. Julius Caesar is not just a politician. He's a general who crosses the Rubicon with an army, breaking the law. His power is born from swords and ends with 23 strikes from those same swords on the steps of Pompey's theater. Octavian Augustus is Caesar's heir. He comes to power after decades of slaughter. Philippi, Perusia, Naulochus, Actium. Behind his triumphs lie heaps of Roman corpses, not just barbarian ones. You're the new emperor. How did you get here? Most likely, you crushed a rival in civil war, bought the Praetorians, won over part of the Senate, pushed your candidacy through with fear or hope. You've already spilled blood, or others spilled it for you. And from day one, you know, in Rome they don't like people stepping down from this job of their own free will. Emperors are replaced in other ways. From this day on, everything you do passes through one filter. Will this phrase, this law, this gesture bring closer the night when I hear the guard's steps at my door? By day, you're a god. By night, a hostage. Picture a normal day in an emperor's life. Not Caligula in an orgy, but say Trajan, Marcus Aurelius, or even Domitian. Morning, letters from the provinces. A governor complains of a bad harvest. If you don't send grain, Alexandria will riot, and then comes famine in Rome. The commander on the Rhine writes, "We need money and men. The Germans are stirring." The general in the east sends a victory report. but between the lines asks for a triumph and money for his legions. Every letter is not just paper. Behind it are thousands of lives and one main risk. If you miscalculate, the mistake will come back to you not as an unfortunate incident, but as a plot. You don't feed the people enough. The mob blames you. You don't pay the armies. The soldiers go to the praetorians. You insult the Senate. The senators go to the conspirators. After the letters, an audience. Before you stand, wealthy equestrians with petitions, senators with cases, city delegations, poets and philosophers bringing flattery in exchange for protection. Everyone smiles. Everyone is ready to swear loyalty. Everyone, at the first chance, will throw you under the chariot if they feel the wind shift. You sit down to eat, but even at the table you are not free. Your relatives sit with you. A wife who may already have discussed a dose of poison with the physician. A son who looks at your laurel and sees not your glory, but his own delayed career. A nephew who remembers all too well how old you were when you suddenly became emperor. At any family dinner outside the palace, you can relax. You cannot. Even a piece of bread you take thinking, who cooked it? Who served it? Who gave the order? Then evening comes, and with it, the emperor's main torture, silence and thoughts. Who can kill an emperor? In Rome, the answer is simple. Everyone. Let's start with those closest. The Praetorians. The Praetorian Guard. Your personal security. The emperor's bodyguards. The men who stand at your doors at night, sleep in the next rooms, know every corridor of the palace, every secret staircase. They can save you, as they saved Tiberius early in his reign. They can also sell the throne at auction, as after the murder of Pertinax in 193, when the guard simply put the empire up for sale. Caligula trusted the Praetorians and died under their swords. Claudius was hoisted onto the shield afterwards, effectively appointed emperor, dragged out from behind a curtain. But that meant one simple thing. The one who seats you can also unseat you. You see their faces every morning. You give them double pay, gifts, privileges. You build them new barracks. And you live with the thought, all this is so that these same hands don't one day grab my shoulder and whisper, sorry, orders. Next, the Senate. Senators love to weep over the murder of Caesar, but in practice they have a rich tradition of plotting against anyone who stands in their way. Under Tiberius, treason trials, delatores, mutual hatred. Under Nero, the Piso conspiracy. Under Domitian, a palace coup involving both intimates and high officials. A senator won't come to stab you himself at night, but he can. Pay someone, cover someone, shut his eyes to preparations for a plot, sign a paper after your death calling it liberation from a tyrant. And finally, the family. The imperial family is not a cozy circle of kin. It's a terrarium. Caligula amuses himself with humiliations and threats. They remove him. Agrippina the Younger pressures Nero. He eliminates her. Vespasian's sons under Titus feel each other as rivals. Domitian, the Younger, grows up in the shadow of father and older brother, and once in power, begins to suspect everyone. Anyone on your branch of the family tree sees you not just as father, uncle, or brother, but as an obstacle to power. The law lets you execute them, exile them, strip their property. It lets them dream of how to be rid of you. Now add another layer, informers and fear. Imagine you're Tiberius late in his reign. You're tired. The Senate disgusts you. Rome is a city of gossip, jokes, and mockery. You withdraw to Capri, to an island where you think you can rule from a distance. But with you, do not disappear. Delatores, professional informers, men who, for money and career, pour every whisper into the emperor's ear. Such and such senator didn't clap loudly enough when they read your decree. So-and-so was found with a book calling Caesar a tyrant. This equestrian at a banquet told a joke about an old goat, and everyone knew whom he meant. Every such whisper ends with an investigation, confiscation of property, exile, execution. You stage trials for maestas, offense against the emperor's majesty. You sign death sentences. You punish men who may have just told a bad joke. And every newly executed man adds one more circle of fear around you. Senators are afraid to say an extra word in your presence. Courtiers are afraid to smile at the wrong moment. Relatives are afraid even to think too loudly. The system that's supposed to protect you turns you into a prisoner of your own paranoia. You sit on an island, counting denunciations and thinking, how much of this is true? And how much is a game by those who want to remove their enemies with my hand? And who will be counting the denunciations about me when I'm old and weak? The worst part is that in this game, the law isn't above you. It's beneath you. You can do almost anything. Forbid someone to live in Rome, send them into exile on an island. Order, make it so he realizes himself it's time to open his veins. The classic voluntary death of an aristocrat. Strip someone of citizenship. Declare someone an enemy of the state. But there's one thing you cannot do. Make people love you. You can buy their fear. You can buy their silence. You can buy their servility. Love doesn't go on sale. And that's exactly why the emperor so often ends up in a trap. The more he punishes, the more they fear him. The more they fear him, the more plots ripen in quiet houses behind shuttered windows. By the end of his reign, Domitian lives like in a fortress, checks the walls, is afraid to enter a hall without a dagger under his pillow, orders mirrors placed so he can see anyone approaching from behind. And they still kill him, his own. Let's look at a few short scenes. What the last hours of different lords of the world looked like. You're Nero. Yesterday you were an artist, a singer, a chariot racer, a god on stage. Today you wake up, and the city whispers, the Senate has declared you an enemy of the people. The Praetorians have gone over to Galba. Your men are melting away. You try to summon what's left of the guard. No one comes. You flee the city with a handful of loyalists. They tell you they're already on their way. They'll catch you, drag you to the forum, and beat you to death with sticks. You press a dagger to your throat and suddenly realize you don't have the courage. A slave helps you. Your last words are about what a great artist's life is dying. You're Domitian. For months, you've been signing executions for every whisper. The senators hate you. The courtiers fear you. A man you know comes into your bedroom. A courtier or eunuch. From behind, out of a side door, the conspirators appear. You have a dagger under the pillow, but you don't make it. A few stabs, and it's over. Later, the Senate will officially proclaim you a tyrant and throw down your statues. But the fact remains, you were killed not by Germans, Dacians, or Persians. You were killed by the men you shared bread and walls with. You're Commodus. You stride into the arena as a gladiator. You're convinced the people adore you. You kill beasts, smash the heads of dummies. But behind the palace walls, conspirators decide the empire needs another emperor. First, they try to poison you. It doesn't work. Then they send your personal wrestler to your bedroom, the very man you train with. He wraps his arms around your neck. A prank, a game, and simply doesn't loosen the hold. You thrash, can't draw breath, and he only squeezes harder. All your statues as Hercules don't help when your killer is sitting on your chest and closing your windpipe. Now, about the punishments you unleash on others. Any plot against an emperor is not just behead the ringleader. It's interrogations, torture, arrests of friends and relatives, confiscations, exiles. You order not only the organizers killed, but also those who must have known. Slaves are tortured to extract names. Wives, sisters, children are sent away to strip your enemies of support. You can stage a public execution. You can crucify. You can throw men to the beasts. You can force them kindly to open their veins in a warm bath, as they did under Nero and Vespasian with many senators. Every such sentence is a message to everyone else. Look what happens to those who think the emperor is tired, old, weak, expendable. But this system has a flip side. You live every day knowing that all these instruments, first, can one day crash down on you yourself. Second, they can brand you a tyrant. They can curse you after death. Damnatio memoriae. Your name will be chiseled off inscriptions. Your statues will be smashed or recarved for the new master. Your children will be stripped of the right to bear your name. Today you're the one signing sentences. Tomorrow you're the one whose name they're scraping off the marble. And that's without even counting the most difficult enemy, the people. You can execute senators, you can crush conspirators, but if Rome hates you, you walk the city's streets on the edge of a chasm. Fire, plague, famine. To the crowd, these are not accidents, but the god's will or the emperor's guilt. After the Great Fire, Nero builds his Golden House, a palace on the site of burnt districts. People whisper, he burned the city himself for his palace. To deflect their hatred, he finds a new target, the Christians, staging spectacular executions, crucifixions, burnings, games. For a while, the hatred is redirected, but memory remains. That's the emperor under whom the city burned. Commodus raises prices, lowers bread quality, puts on more games to distract the mob. At the same time, he drains the treasury. In the end, even those who once worshipped him in the arena begin to whisper, enough. The emperor is responsible for everything, for rain that doesn't fall, for the Nile not flooding, for grain that doesn't arrive from Egypt, for bandits on the roads, for the value of the coin. You don't have the right to say, "It wasn't me, it was circumstances." In the Roman mind, the emperor is the mediator between gods and city. If something goes wrong, the mediator is to blame, and you know it. Add one more torture, waiting for the judgment after you're gone. In Rome, an emperor is judged twice. In life, by the mob, senate, army. After death, by history and an official vote. The Senate can grant you the title divus, deified, build you a temple, declare you a good emperor, or pronounce damnatio memoriae, condemnation of memory, tear down statues, chisel out your name, declare you a monster and a mistake of history. You live with that prospect as yet another kind of pressure. Trajan, Optimus Princeps, the best prince. After his death, they praise him, compare him to the gods. His name becomes a benchmark. Nero, Domitian, Commodus become yardsticks for the worst. God forbid another Nero. Every decision you make, you measure against that scale. Will they say later, he saved the empire? Or will they say, he was just another madman they tolerated too long? Paradoxically, an ordinary man dies and stops thinking. An emperor lives as if his trial will go on for centuries after his death. And now, the nastiest truth. We're used to thinking the unhappy ones in the empire are legionaries, slaves, peasants. The emperor, we assume, just bathes in luxury. But if instead of asking, who has the better ration, we ask, who has more fears, the picture changes. The legionary is afraid of dying from a spear, hunger, decimation. But he has a simple dream: survive to discharge, get land, leave. The slave fears torture and sale, but he sometimes dreams of freedom, and it's a real possibility. The peasant fears taxes and bad harvests, but his fear doesn't concern the Senate or history. At most, his neighbors are afraid of him. The emperor fears everything: the army, the Senate, the crowd, the praetorians, kin, history, the gods. He has no exit. He cannot resign and go farm. Any attempt to give up power is to admit it can move from hand to hand, which means hunting season opens on anyone who can be called the better candidate. A couple of centuries later, Diocletian will try to step down voluntarily and grow cabbages, but that exception only proves the rule. For most emperors, the formula is simple. You enter this role through blood, you live in it through fear, you leave it through a plot, a sword or poison. So let's quickly sum up what the horror of a Roman emperor's life really is. You live under a constant state exam where any mistake can spark a revolt, in a palace that is both fortress and prison, with an army that protects you and can sell you at any moment, with a Senate that swears loyalty and writes conspiracies, with relatives for whom you're a rung on the ladder, not dad, surrounded by informers who, with your own money, fill your ears with fear, using executions, exiles and torture to keep your grip on power, knowing that one day these same instruments will crash down on your own memory. From afar, it looks like the life of a demigod. Up close, like a very expensive, very beautiful cage, where even the sound of approaching footsteps at night can mean the end of everything. So here's the final question for you. If you were offered a choice, to be a free but invisible Roman, or to become emperor, with power, gold, statues, but with an almost guaranteed nighttime encounter with the guards, what would you choose? Roman history suggests thousands of people dreamed of sitting on this throne, and the few who actually sat on it mostly dreamed of something else. To one day wake not from the whisper of sandals in the corridor, but from an ordinary street vendor's shout outside the window, and know that shout isn't carrying a death sentence. We'll put a full stop here, and if you want a continuation, in the next video we can break down specific stories, what a single night looked like inside the head of Nero, Tiberius, or Domitian, and at what moment their own paranoia became their chief executioner.